The faint click of the door latch cut through the stillness, louder than any scream. It was 2 in the morning, and the silence inside our apartment pressed down on me like a weight, a living reminder of the one mistake that had cracked everything apart. I sat frozen on the couch, Ryan's favorite, the one he always claimed was molded just right, while I watched him disappear into the night. My phone rested in my hand like a stone. The screen's glow stabbed through the darkness, relentless, unforgiving. Over and over, I scrolled up to my last message, a frantic jumble of words begging for forgiveness. Now it sat beneath the cold finality of a blue checkmark, a grave marker in digital form. No reply, no typing bubble, no call. The night replayed in my head on a punishing loop, each detail sharper than the last. The crowded apartment, the buzz of voices, the shared laughter. Ryan's closest friends gathered together in easy camaraderie. And me, soaking in their attention, as if it were mine by right. Then came my story. The story I thought would make him look charming, admirable. Something that would, by extension, make me shine brighter too. I remember his face as I finished. Not angry, not embarrassed, just utterly blank. He set down his glass with calm precision and said, "Sorry, everyone. I actually have other plans tonight." Then he stood, crossed the room, and walked out. No raised voice. No slammed door. Just the sharp, final snap of the latch. Now, hours later, the echo of laughter from that party still clung to me, mocking the suffocating silence of our home. My stomach twisted into a knot I kept trying to loosen with excuses. He's overreacting. He'll sleep it off. By morning, everything will go back to normal. He'll come back. He has to. To the outside world, Ryan and I had always looked like the perfect pair. 2 years together, and we seemed to fit like puzzle pieces. I was the spark, the one who could waltz into a room full of strangers and leave with new friends. Ryan was the steady counterbalance, thoughtful and calm, grounding me with nothing more than a quiet smile. He worked in software engineering, careful and methodical. I thrived in PR, curating moments and stories that dazzled. I loved that he was my anchor, the harbor where I could always return. But too often, I treated him like material for my routines. At dinners and parties, I turned him into the punchline of my light-hearted anecdotes. His obsessive sock-folding, his inability to fib, even the smallest harmless lie became fuel for my humor. Can you believe he once tried to return a library book a day early? I'd quip, and people would laugh. Ryan would blush faintly, shake his head, and say softly, "Kara, please." I always thought he was playing along, indulging me. I never asked if it stung to always be the joke. There was one story, though, the only one he ever told me not to share. His red line. His one unhealed wound. He told me late at night, about a year after we started dating. His voice was low, heavy, as he described the startup he'd launched in college, a bold green tech idea to create biodegradable plastic from algae. He poured everything into it. Loans, savings, years of sweat and hope. His best friend had been his co-founder. And then came the betrayal. His partner had been siphoning money, manipulating the numbers, and selling their core research behind his back. The business didn't just collapse. It disintegrated into lawsuits, debt, and shame. Ryan filed bankruptcy at 22. It wasn't the money, Kara, he'd whispered, eyes hidden in the dark. It was the humiliation. Everyone looking at me like I was naive, stupid, like I let my best friend destroy me. I can't live with that being a story. I had promised, sworn I'd never breathe a word. That secret had been a treasure in my hands, proof that he trusted me completely. That night's gathering was at Liam's new apartment, a party for his promotion to senior architect. The place was alive with chatter and warmth, filled with people who'd known Ryan for years, his chosen family. I was welcomed as one of their own. With a glass of chilled Sauvignon Blanc in hand, I was in my zone. I'd already made Liam's boss laugh, won over his little sister, and felt unstoppable. Ryan stayed close, quiet, his palm steady on the small of my back. Later, everyone drifted into the living room, a loose circle sprawled across couches and cushions. The atmosphere was easy, nostalgic. Someone, I think Liam's cousin, turned to Ryan and teased, "Come on, Ree. You're always so quiet. What's the most reckless, impulsive thing you've ever done?" Ryan gave a small smile, the kind that deflected attention. "Honestly, I'm not really a wild story kind of guy. I once alphabetized my spice rack. That was a pretty crazy Tuesday." A ripple of polite laughter went around the room. And I saw it, my moment. My chance to drop a bigger story. I wanted a story that showed a side of Ryan few ever got to see. Driven, bold, a little tragic. Something that would cast him as the quiet hero of the night, while making me look like the clever narrator who brought it all to life. The wine buzz in my veins mixed with the thrill of holding the room's attention, and I couldn't resist. "Oh, he's just downplaying it." I cut in, my voice slicing through the chatter. "Trust me, he has a far better story than alphabetizing a spice rack." Across the circle, Ryan's eyes met mine. The look he gave me wasn't the usual soft plea of "Kara, please." This was sharper, urgent. A silent, desperate warning. "Don't." I saw it. I knew it. And in a split second of arrogance, I brushed it aside. "He's just being shy," I told myself. "It's a great story. It's old history. Maybe it's time he owns it." So I began. "You want reckless? Try founding a company at 19, I announced, leaning forward as if letting them in on a delicious secret. My hands painted the picture, my voice rising and falling with dramatic effect. I mimicked his youthful enthusiasm, described how he emptied his savings into an ecotech dream of turning algae into biodegradable plastics. Then I got to the betrayal. I cast his best friend as the villain, adding flair as if it were a comedy sketch. I clutched my chest, staggered back in mock despair, acting out the moment Ryan discovered he'd been betrayed. "You should have seen his face," I said with a laugh. "Like a puppy learning Santa isn't real." I ended with a flourish, expecting laughter, maybe applause. A room full of his friends rallying around him, slapping him on the back, praising his resilience. But no one laughed. A few nervous chuckles fizzled out almost instantly, replaced by a silence so heavy it felt suffocating. Eyes dropped to glasses, to the floor, to anything but me or Ryan. The cozy warmth of the gathering evaporated, replaced by a collective cringe that settled over everyone. My pulse hammered in my chest, panic rising as the last drops of wine-fueled bravado drained away. I finally dared to look at him. Ryan's face was unreadable. No anger. No embarrassment. Not even the faint blush I'd braced for. Just nothing. A void. He had shut down completely, pulled back into a place I couldn't reach. Slowly, deliberately, he set his glass on the table. The soft clink rang out like a gunshot. He didn't look at me. His gaze moved around the room, resting briefly on each friend. There was no drama in his movements as he rose, adjusted his shirt, and spoke. His voice was calm, measured, cutting through the silence with precision. "Sorry, everyone. I just remembered. I've got other plans tonight. You all go on, enjoy yourselves." Then he turned and left. He didn't rush. He didn't slam the door. He walked through the group with a quiet authority that made people instinctively step aside, retrieved his jacket, and slipped it on. The entire time, his back was to me. I sat frozen, half-formed words stuck in my throat, desperate to stop him but powerless under the weight of his finality. The door opened. He stepped into the hall. And then came that sound again, the soft click of the latch. It wasn't loud, but it was devastating. The sound of something locking, of a line being crossed, of an ending I hadn't realized was coming until it was already here. The moment the door closed, the silence cracked, but the mood didn't recover. The room felt poisoned, as if Ryan had sucked out all the air before leaving. I tried to fix it, my voice brittle. "Well," I laughed weakly. "Someone can't take a joke. He's always so sensitive about that stuff." The words dropped into the silence, like stones. No one laughed. No one even smiled. Across the room, a couple stood abruptly. "We should probably head out," the woman said, avoiding my eyes. Long drive. Their exit triggered an exodus. Phones appeared in hands, glasses were drained quickly, and polite goodbyes rolled out in a chorus that felt more like judgment than courtesy. Great party, Liam. Congrats again. Each farewell cut deeper, as if they weren't just leaving the party, but escaping contamination. And I was the source. I grabbed my purse, numb, ready to follow the crowd out in shame, when Liam stepped in front of me. He wasn't aggressive, but he blocked my path, his presence unmovable. The last guest slipped out, shooting me a look of pity. Suddenly, it was just the two of us, surrounded by the debris of a celebration I had destroyed. He's not sensitive, Kara, Liam said, his tone calm but carrying the weight of a gavel. I opened my mouth. It was just a... He cut me off with a shake of his head. Don't. Do you even understand what you just did? It was years ago, I stammered. No, he said firmly, eyes locking onto mine. A story is something you tell. That was a wound. Do you know how long it took him to recover from that? For 2 years, he couldn't even open a newspaper without panicking at the business section. He woke up sweating from nightmares about lawyers and debts. He trusted someone with everything and it broke him. The only way he survived was by burying it so deep he could function again. Liam stepped closer, his expression a mix of sorrow and steel. And then he trusted you. He let you pass the wall he built, gave you the key because he thought you were safe. And tonight, you took the most vulnerable part of his life, the part that nearly destroyed him, and you put it on display for a cheap laugh. You didn't just embarrass him, Kara. You betrayed him. You used his trust as a prop. His words weren't shouted, but they landed like blows. Each one knocked the air from my lungs. The flimsy, it was only a joke, defense I'd been clutching collapsed, not cracked, but utterly demolished. For the first time that night, I could see the full scale of what I'd done. I hadn't merely told an ill-timed story. I'd torn open the one scar he trusted me to keep closed and paraded it in front of everyone he respected, all for a few seconds of attention. Shame rose through me like heat, acrid, burning from my gut up to my throat. I found I had nothing to say. There was nothing to say. He was right. The next 48 hours felt like a slow unspooling of my sanity, a sequence of small, awful revelations. At first I held on to righteous anger and denial. Back in our apartment, the silence felt accusatory. Shock hardened into a prickly, defensive fury. How dare he leave me like that? I thought, pacing, furious that he had walked out and left me to face the fallout. I thumbed out a message, fingers stabbing at the keys. That was such an overreaction. I was trying to liven things up, show them another side of you. You made it weird for everyone. I hit send with a burst of self-righteousness. Delivered. Then minutes later, the blue-red mark. Nothing followed. That small, blank absence felt like condemnation. By morning, the anger curdled into a cold, heavy dread. He hadn't come home. His side of the bed was neat, untouched. Panic crawled into my throat. I called. It rang twice and went to voicemail. Listening to the recording of his voice, familiar and ordinary, hit me like a blow. I started texting again, but the tone shifted from annoyed to desperate. The messages piled up. Ryan, please call. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. We need to talk. I can't do this without you. Each plea was more about my panic than his pain, a selfish string of apologies, begging him to fix what I'd broken. His continued silence made it clear he knew that. That afternoon, I tried to find any sign that things might be reparable. I checked his socials. Ryan's profile looked the same, but I couldn't find Liam's posts anymore. I searched Liam's account, gone. Blocked. I clicked through other friends from the party. Blocked, unfriended, vanished. It wasn't random, it was coordinated. I felt, in a new, small way, amputated, removed from the network that had supported him. This wasn't just his anger. It was his circle closing ranks without me. Desperate, I rang Chloe and rehearsed the story to elicit sympathy, casting Ryan as oversensitive and everyone else as dramatic. There was a long silence on the line. Then, in a voice that wasn't pity so much as sorrow, she said, Kara, you told the bankruptcy story. The one he told you in confidence, in front of all his friends. What were you thinking? Her words broke whatever was left of my defense. Hearing the truth from someone who didn't know either of us made it undeniable. This was not a misunderstanding. It was a betrayal. A week later, an email arrived from him. The subject line, arrangements for personal items, gutted me in a way I hadn't expected. The message was short, businesslike, and emotionless. He wrote that Liam would come by on Saturday to collect his remaining things and asked if that time worked for me. He closed with "Best, Ryan." No warmth. No sign-off that suggested anything but finality. On Saturday, I hid out in a coffee shop while Liam methodically gathered Ryan's belongings from our shared apartment. When I walked back in, the place felt hollow. Shelves were stripped, the closet lighter, the favorite armchair gone. It was as if he'd been erased. Only a single cardboard box sat in the corner, full of old books and papers, the detritus of a life being removed. I began sorting through the box on autopilot, not sure whether I was looking for a keepsake or some piece of evidence that might reconnect me to him. Between college textbooks, I found a new Moleskine. Inside were pages of tight, careful handwriting, a detailed business plan for a community-supported agriculture project. Notes on crop rotation, budgets, projections, hopeful, meticulous work. He'd been quietly planning another start, a small, courageous attempt to rebuild after the bankruptcy. At the precise moment he was finding the courage to try again, I'd exposed the wound I'd promised to protect. Weeks later, the last confirmation of what I'd lost came through the one social window I still had, Liam's account, which I could access through Chloe. A new photo appeared from a recent hike. In the center was Ryan, laughing, a genuine, unguarded laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He looked lighter, freer, better than I'd seen him in years. Seeing him there, moving forward and at peace, changed everything for me. He wasn't punishing me out of spite. He was choosing to heal. He had removed the source of the poison and stepped into something healthier. As his smiling face filled the frame, the last of my selfish excuses, if he weren't so sensitive, dissolved. The truth settled in. I had caused this, and he was unquestionably better off without me.